So today we are going to discuss about an interview question asked in a product-based company. So that question is, so create a function that returns a promise, and that should be called only once. Okay. So generally, in our JavaScript design patterns, we have multiple design patterns like singleton, facade, factory, module pattern, something like that. So I understood that the interviewer wanted to test my singleton design pattern skills. So I went with the simple, easiest approach of creating a function and returning a promise. So I started with approach like, let's say there is a global variable called instance, and I have a promise returner function. Okay, so keep in mind that I have that small p in the beginning, because whatever with the camel case, if we have capital P, then we can actually instantiate with new, but this can't be instantiated with new. Okay, and I started with this instance false, and then I am going to check with if instance is true, then I am going to throw a new error. Okay, so saying like this is a singleton. Okay, and then if not, I am going to set it to. So this way this function can be called only once. So now I am going to actually return a promise. Okay, first let me create a promise. Okay, so I have resolve one reject, and then I am going to resolve it like resolve. Okay, so I am going to here, I am going to return this promise. So now so first thing is I am going to call this function. So so now we are going to call promise returner like directly function, and so as we are returning this promise, I am just going to use this then, and I am going to capture that data, and I am going to console log this data. Okay, so so let me test this. Okay, it's going to resolve it, so we call it. So let me try, because our ask is to limit this only to call once. So let's see. So it called the new error. Okay, so this is one easiest approach. So let's take like approach one is to create a function. So then the interviewer went ahead and asked me to create this approach using object-oriented programming. So so basically object-oriented programming is something like which is driven especially something like from Java, right? So he was expecting me to use the classes and all. So now let me get into this class-based approach. Okay, so here I am going to create a class called promise returner. So one advantage of class is basically in the previous approach of creating this function, so this doesn't have an order of execution. Let's say I have given it sequentially, right? So for example, let me just so here I have created this instance and instance true, and then I am going to return. So there is no particular order specified, and you know, right, JavaScript doesn't actually execute it order by order. Let's say if something is taking like longer time, it's not going to wait for it. So that is one way it's going to cause a problem, but the classes have the construction function, so that will enable us to actually instantiate and check something in the construction function. So let me go for, okay, so I have this class and I have a constructor function. Okay, so here now I am going to put this logic, okay, in the constructor. So here I am going to okay, so here I am going to put and check, and in the constructor itself I am going to put it as a true. Okay, so let me create a function like get promise. Okay, so basically we no need to use any function keyword here, because in class we can directly define something like this. And okay, so this one going to return a new promise. Okay. So I'm going to resolve it as hello. Okay, so now let me create some instances of okay, let's say here I am creating, and then I am going to call, I am going to get the data, okay, and I am going to print the data. Let's see. Okay, so it's going to print it. So now let me try to instantiate it second time. So now what we are seeing, yeah, so now we are seeing like there is an error being thrown from here. Okay, so this is another approach. And then he went ahead to implement, he went ahead to ask me to implement like how we can actually do that, actually create objects from a function. So so he dig down on like a new keyword, and he wanted me to use it through new. So what I did is like I went to create a constructor function. Okay, so similar to my approach 1, so my approach 3 is like so this is through function constructor. Okay, so similar to approach 1, so here there will be no order. Okay, even if it is a constructor function, there will be no order, and I'll still need to do it in a no order way, like okay. And here I am going to set it to true. So so now here I am going to create a method like get promise. Okay, so here I am going to return a new promise. Resolve reject. It's going to resolve a hello. Okay, okay, so this should be working similar to previous one. Okay, so it got hello. Okay, and then let me try to instantiate second time, and then here we got an error. So this is another way. So, and then the another approach he wanted me to use is through object. Okay, he wanted me to create an object and then to use this singleton pattern. So before jumping on to object, so there are few tricky parts whenever we're using different ways of creating a function in different ways, right? So when we are creating a function, right, we used to directly call it as like get promise, something like this. But when it comes to class, it is just get promise class, right? And then we'll just jump ahead and do it here, and this is just this way. And then when we come to function constructor, we have to give it something like this, because we need to bound this particular function to this context of the function. So that's the reason why we need to have this dot get promise, and then we need to do something like this. Okay, so now let's jump into the object way. Okay, so in the object I am going to create a method. Okay, so here we are going to define this get promise as a function, and inside this function I am going to check. So because in the object I can't really have a constructor which gets called like the class based approach, right? And also I can't call object with a new keyword, because this is not a function constructor. And also like create function, we can't directly write some code blocks inside this object. So that's why I went ahead and used this approach to create instance, to check the instance inside this get promise. So here the instance is there, I am going to call new error. Okay, this way. Okay, so here I am going to put it as true, and then this is going to return a promise. This is going to resolve hello. So now when it comes to calling it, we can't call it with a new, okay, but we can directly call it as new object, right? And we can directly call that function, and then we can get the data. So let's see, right, we got it hello. So let's try to call it second time, right? Yeah, so here we got the error from here. So these are 4 ways. This question was asked in a product based interview for a senior front-end engineer. Okay, and basically whenever he doesn't directly ask me about singleton pattern, but he actually wanted me to infer from the question that it's a singleton pattern. Okay, and also whenever we find any singleton design pattern questions in the online, we generally get it whether it is from patterns.dev, we generally get it from the class based way, because class based way is the most cleanest approach, because we have that constructor director constructor method in it, right? And I would say the second cleanest method would be to use the function constructor, because it has the new keyword. And then the third cleanest way is this first approach, we have that function, and because this this has some disadvantage because this doesn't have an order, right? And then the fourth ugliest way is the object way. Okay, so yeah, hope this helps. Thank you.